Hello and welcome back to the 4Front 10-year anniversary special podcasty Rob Nat chatting about 4Front and history of the things in time.
Episode 3.
So today we're talking about our foray into children's ministry that was virtual Sunday school.
Yeah, I love virtual Sunday
and
school.
everything 4Front during
COVID.
2020 and the pandemic and COVID and all
beyond. Yeah. So should we give a bit of a backdrop? 2019 was a banging year for us.
2019 was a phenomenal year.
It was a
4Front.
high.
It was
yeah.
a significant high of a year. Christmas the Christmas we just had was absolutely brilliant. We had two phenomenal teams, incredibly busy tours.
Yeah, it was to this day is still the busiest Christmas tour we've ever had. I think we had almost 90 shows. It was rammed.
It was mad.
And really great teams. They got on
Just
really well.
Really good times. We weren't on the tours either.
Yeah.
So we had two teams on the road and me and Nat were just in the role of overseeing and I was playing understudy. I stepped in a couple of times.
I think, or twice.
Which
is a funny story in of itself, actually.
I stepped in to cover James. James Ainsworth, absolute legend of a guy, but quite slight.
And Rob is not like that.
And I am the opposite of James Ainsworth in my body type.
And we didn't have an understudy costume for Rob, which meant that Rob wore James's costume. Yeah, you heard that, everybody. Rob wore James's costume to do for a show.
I felt like I was stepping into the clothing of a child.
I mean, you did look like Tiny Tim because, you were popping out of the clothes.
I don't know if I look like Tiny Tim. I look like an eaten Tiny Tim. It made me look hench, to be fair.
It did.
Somehow pulled on James's shorts, and then the shirt was literally bursting open at the buttons.
Did you even wear the waistcoat? Because that
was the funny thing. The shirt was just squeezed on, and then the waistcoat was like. What?
And you wore your own shoes.
I don't want my own shoes.
Because James's shoes were like a size 8, and you're like an 11 or 12. So it was funny. And also that show, as a random extra thing, we set the fire alarm off during the show because we had smoke. A smoke machine and it set the fire alarm off.
Set the fire alarm.
That's a little aside to say that Christmas tour was absolutely amazing.
That Christmas
I literally remember thinking, this is so nice. This is good. This is going really well. God is good. The shows are going well. The team are amazing. And 4Front is on the up. I remember thinking those thoughts in Christmas 2019.
Yeah.
And then 2020.
But then 2020, we went into the start of the year on again such a high.
Yeah, it's true.
Because we had two Fisherman's Tale teams on the road at the same time. One doing England and one doing Scotland.
Yeah.
But of course, so we had these two shows hitting the road, incredibly busy tours for 6 weeks each of them. I think
they were 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah, I think Scotland was 4.5, 5 weeks, and the England tour was 6 weeks. Yeah,
and mostly 2 shows a day kind of thing.
Yeah, it was busy.
Absolutely
it was
packed out.
Really, really packed.
And brilliant teams. And we hit the road, and the shows were amazing.
Yeah,
fantastic feedback. Schools were loving it, and they were having a great time as well.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
And then we got up on the Scotland team. I was on it. We got up to Shetland, where we were there on the island for a few days, and the England team.
You had a great week there.
So we were just finishing off a phenomenal week in Shetland, just building up to show at the end of the week. And the England team were building up to their show in Huddersfield, Leeds. Somewhere. It was a 2,000 strong
church in
audience
Leeds.
or something. And it was so everything was on the up and up, and everything was fantastic. And then COVID.
It was a weird time. So I was meant to come and see you in Shetland.
Yeah.
So it's before we had kids. We did have Samson, but I was meant to fly. It was Thursday, and I was meant to fly on Sunday because that's when you got there on Sunday to Shetland to come and join you for the week. And Flybe went into administration.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
This was not COVID related. They just went into administration, and I was like, oh, well, guess I'm not going to get to Shetland that way then. But at the same time, I got a phone call from my dad to say that my mum had been rushed into hospital. I went up north to my family who are in Yorkshire to see my mum, and kind of said to Rob, I don't think I'm going to get to Shetland. Flybe have gone into administration and I don't know how ill my mum is. So I might need to stick around, basically.
Yeah.
And then while you were in Shetland and while the team were performing at a school down in England, good old Boris Johnson got on the news and was like, actually, COVID is a thing and we're going to go into lockdown.
Yeah.
But I remember you got on the last got on the last boat off, didn't you? But then they'd announced COVID, and I'm wrong actually. They'd not announced the lockdown yet.
No,
they'd announced things that were going to be stopping, and they were putting measures in.
So we had to cancel
so
the tour.
we knew that we were going to cancel the tour, but
we got back and then had a day of just waiting to hear whether or not it was there or not.
Yeah,
and so we sat in a pub for like 5 hours.
Yeah, just waiting.
Playing. And we were like, is it okay if we play a board game in here?
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah.
So we were just there playing a board game, watching the news unfold as it all came to it. And we were like, is it, and then, it's not looking great. Oh, actually, yeah, maybe. Course, they've just said that.
Yeah. And of course they did announce the lockdown, and we, praise the Lord, were far enough through the tour that we didn't
reach the halfway point, which had broken even.
That meant that the show had broken even enough. So we had a lot of money to give back. We had over 10 grand to give in refunds, which we managed to do. Yeah. But we didn't go under. Had that happened a couple of weeks earlier, that would have been the end of 4Front. It would have been bad. But so everyone went home. All the while, going back to where I was at this point, I and the dog Samson, we're up north with my family in Yorkshire, and my mum was sadly diagnosed with cancer. So I had been staying there with my mum and my dad and my sisters, and then lockdown was announced, and it was like, oh, what? How does this work now? My mum needed surgery. They've suddenly stopped everything. 4Front is in this weird position. What's going to happen with that now? And I came home, didn't I? I was working as the children's and families worker at our local church, and kind of in the back of my head going on at this time was, oh, okay, also my responsibilities are towards the kids at our local church who can't now come to church. What might happen there? And I feel like, and that was the birth of Virtual Sunday School. And I feel like there's a bit in the Bible where it talks about God not being in the rushing wind and not being in the really loud noises, but God being in the still small voice. That is a time in my life when, with all the craziness that was going on, like my mum's diagnosed with cancer, 4Front's had to cancel 2 of our biggest tours.
And what are we doing going forwards?
And what are we doing going forwards? Lockdown, what does that mean? All these massive questions. In the still small voice, God was like, you need to start Virtual Sunday School. And so we did, didn't we? We came home, and it
was in time for that first Sunday.
It was in time for the first Sunday.
We made a video.
So and you can go back and watch that first video, and I slightly cringe at that first video. I'm not going to lie.
Nice. It's still nice. It's cute.
It's cute. But we didn't have anything to film with, so we used a floodlight from the garage, which blinded me. We used the iPhone, and Rob edited it together, didn't you? And we made it for our church, but we put it on YouTube as well.
Yeah, and just put it out there, and put it out on 4Front as well. Yeah. Here's a wider thing if people want to watch it.
Yeah, and people did want to watch it, and suddenly what we made for our local church, for our local kids, was everywhere, around the world, everywhere, and really useful for people. And so during that COVID time, then we made a video every week. Yeah, didn't we?
Every week, yeah.
And it actually gave us some form of schedule during the week, wasn't it? Because COVID was a weird time with nothing. You can't go out, you can't do this.
We're incredibly blessed that we managed to get furlough for some of our salary and things. Yeah. So financially, we didn't have much coming in, but we weren't in dire straits. We could just kind of weather it and we could just keep things low key.
God just provided for us, and we got a couple of financial gifts, which really helped us get through. Yeah. And so initially, actually, Virtual Sunday School started as a church thing. It wasn't part of 4Front, so we furloughed 4Front, and we did virtual Sunday school as part of my job at church, and then just shared it through the 4Front channels, really, didn't we? And eventually, obviously, 4Front kind of took on virtual Sunday school.
Virtual Sunday school became a much bigger thing.
Yeah,
we were looking to get back to doing 4Front. It was like, well,
yeah.
4Front can take it on.
Yeah, and I finished my job at the church, and so they were happy for us to do virtual Sunday school through 4Front, and it became that. But yeah, those initial first few months was it was like weekly episodes. We'd film on a Tuesday. I remember this. Film on a Tuesday, which gave you like 3 days to do the editing, get it up on a Saturday at 10 a.m. so that people could use it on a Sunday.
Man, and you know what? We actually had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah,
there was there was a lot of like stresses and faff and whatever that went along with it, but generally it was a really good, positive thing that, throughout lockdown, I think we actually came off a lot better than a lot of people.
We did.
Because we were so privileged to have something really meaningful to work towards, which was making a difference, and people were really appreciating.
Yeah, and at the beginning, that was just me and Rob, because obviously we were in our household together, and that's what we could do.
Yep.
But then as kind of rules changed and things developed with COVID, and you could then have the rule of 6, and you could meet people outside, and all the different rules, we were able to bring in our friends. And that's one thing I love about virtual Sunday school, is that Jordan, Ollie and Beth, they are just our friends, and I love that. I love that we get to do like that fun stuff together with our friends. It's really great.
One of the like early highlights of VSS was we'd been building up the channel and building up loads of followers, and we had loads of kids who'd send in photos and messages and things every week, and be all up and down the UK. And then there was like a family from Paraguay who used to get involved every week, and all sorts of places here, there and everywhere. But then when things were a little more looser, there was more provision made for bits and pieces of like, as it tied in with work and charity stuff, we did our first virtual holiday club, which was just fantastic. We worked with friend of ours, Cy Parry, who does like kids TV stuff and music stuff and all sorts of worship things, All Star Kids. He had been given this office space
by the entertainer.
So they given him this massive office space to turn into a TV studio, and he had it for the summer. And so there was like 2 other groups that were also doing like kind of kids TV style stuff, and then we did it as well. So I had this amazing kind of full-on kids TV studio, effectively, and did a week-long holiday club, and we had thousands of children and families.
I think it was 15,000 views in the end.
Mad.
It was amazing. We had such a good week. We bubbled as a presenter group, I guess. We lived in the same house for the week, because it was down in Amersham where we filmed it. And we did it live. We did it live on YouTube, and it was
so fun.
It was so fun. Those videos are still on our YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, if you've not seen them, have a watch. It's just some of the fun and the games, and like just the amount.
So much gunging.
I think that it was fun doing it, and the content and things was great. But one of the really great things was just the kind of behind the scenes stuff of going through the emails, going through the messages, the social media, and the mad levels of interaction and engagement we had was like, this is brilliant.
I was like,
really making a difference. People really appreciate it.
I remember you being like, oh yeah, because we could print pictures out that people send in in the morning session and then show them in the evening session. And I was like, no, like nobody's going to send a picture in. We can't do that. Or maybe like it's 5 live. People will. That'll be really awkward. We can't do that. And then we couldn't print them all out. There were so many pictures and things sent in.
It's like, we'll print them out and we'll cut them out. And we had loads. And then whoever it was who was trying to cut them out and trim them down, it was like, oh my gosh, they were there for like an hour. And then by the last day, it was like, print them out in bulk, whack them up with the white edges. There's too many.
I don't even think we got them all out.
No, we didn't. We only bought about 3/4
crazy.
of them, half of them, wasn't it?
Yeah, the behind the scenes stuff there was really nice. Like, I was pregnant, and I was 8 weeks pregnant. Nobody knew.
Well, I mean, Jordan and Ollie and that figured it out pretty quick when you were throwing up every morning.
I decided to tell them, because I was like, with both my pregnancies so far, have been very sick, like very, very sick for a very large chunk of my pregnancy. And it starts very early. And so at 8 weeks, I was throwing up every day. And I was like, I can't live with these people for a week. And be like, I'm fine. I'll keep it a secret. So we told the team, didn't we, who we were working with. But there was one morning, wasn't there, the Wednesday morning, where
we had a timer, we had a countdown.
Yeah, the 60-second countdown was on. So we were live. We were live on the 60-second countdown, and I was stood there on the like presenter stage bit, ready to like start the session. And then I was like, oh no, I'm gonna be sick. So I ran to the toilet and was sick. And in the meantime, Rob's like...
So Nat just runs to the toilet with her card of this is everything she's got of the presenter intro this morning. She disappears, and I'm like, well, I'll stand on the spot then. And I was just ready to be like, time to make it up.
Yep.
And just blag until she gets back, I guess.
Yeah.
And then literally as the countdown was coming down like 5, 4, 3, and I was like, right, I guess I'll say this and this and this. 3, 2, Nat ran on and pushed me out of the way.
I was like, hello, everybody. That was intense. That was very intense.
Yeah. But of course, I mean, being pregnant and morning sick wasn't the biggest challenge that you faced, actually, because, I mean, take it back a bit.
Yeah, so back in July, back at the beginning of the whole thing, obviously, my mum had been diagnosed with cancer, and then they'd stopped all the surgeries. They'd stopped everything going on. And she was told that she'd probably have 12 months to live.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, obviously that's not good, but 12 months is a good amount of time at least. But actually, she deteriorated very quickly, and there wasn't much support from the hospitals because of COVID.
Yeah.
And so sadly, in July, she actually passed away. Thankfully, not before she knew that we were pregnant, actually.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah.
That you got to tell her.
We did get to tell her that, which was, crazy, actually. We had a private scan. So we did that on the Saturday, and then we drove back, and then we stayed in a hotel by the hospital Saturday night and Sunday night. And on Sunday, my mum held my scan picture in her hand. And then on Sunday night, she died. Oh, I didn't think I was going to get emotional about this. Sorry.
It's all right.
So on the Sunday evening, on the Sunday night at 4 o'clock in the morning, actually, on Monday, my mum passed away. Not before we filmed a virtual Sunday school episode in the hotel.
Was it Saturday night, was it?
It was, or was it Sunday day? It might have been Sunday day.
Well, when did it go out then? Oh, because we
it
made
was for the following week.
For the following week,
we made it knowing that my mum was probably going to die, and I probably wouldn't be able to film one after she died. So, thankfully, the hotel room that we stayed in had a plain white wall.
Had a blank white wall.
Yeah.
And we brought the lights with us.
Yeah.
The little VSS lights and
because we knew that this was probably going to happen. So, if you're watching this, you just see my very sad face. So we filmed a virtual Sunday school episode, didn't we?
About the fruits of the spirit.
Yeah.
And we went to the shop and bought loads of fruit
and wrote on it.
And wrote on the fruit.
Yeah.
And it's a fun episode.
It is a fun episode, actually.
I mean, it's mad that, like, if ever I watch back that episode, it's just another episode. Like, it doesn't.
No one would know.
You can't really.
No one would know.
Tell that there's anything too different about it.
Yeah.
And here's an episode about the fruits of the spirit, and it's still just doing what it does.
Yeah.
That evening, we filmed the VSS one, and there's you being your usual bubbly self, teaching kids about the fruits of the spirit. And then, was it 4 o'clock in the morning?
4 o'clock in the morning,
Just a few hours later, and got the news that your mum had
my mum had died, yeah. And then, obviously, it's the rolling thing of what happens when someone dies and funerals and things like that. But then the crazy thing, going back to the holiday club then, was that so my family agreed to delay the funeral by a week so that I didn't have to miss any of the holiday club, and we could do the funeral on the Monday following us finishing holiday club on the Friday. So
that was a big move from your dad, effectively.
Yeah.
Because, you said that actually your mum believed in everything you were doing
she
and
did.
wouldn't want it to be disrupted.
Yeah, and she saw virtual Sunday school, which, I'm really thankful about. So I remember finishing on that Friday and sitting on the sofa holding Samson's lead because he was all over the place and just, like, kind of zoning out a minute and then, needing to just go to the bathroom because I knew that I was going to cry. So I was like, Ollie. I literally just said Ollie and, like, gave him the lead and left. And I remember Ollie being like, Rob, I think you need to. And we just both stood in the girls' toilets in that TV studio and cried. And Gosh, and it was amazing. Like, that week was so good. But
mad, wasn't it?
you know, the high highs and the low lows of COVID were the biggest I've ever had in my life. With losing my mum, and then the funeral and everything that goes around it.
Yeah, I mean, like, often it's like, you look at 4Front, and I'm artistic director, and I'm like, do a lot of the vision and write the shows and all the whatever. So you could look to Rob as being a spearhead in a lot of ways. But very much Virtual Sunday School, you have been the one leading that. And that holiday club in particular was a moment where I was just, just in awe of what you do and how good you can be with it all.
No, thanks. Let's move on from that. But we got to do the holiday club again next year, didn't we? The 2021 year.
In Worcester the next year.
Yeah, which was nice.
Si came again, and we did it here locally.
St Helens, which All Saints, which was really great. And then, off the back of that, we started our in-person family camp. So
we still kept on going, doing stuff for the channel, Virtual Sunday School. We'd done some praise songs by that point.
Yeah.
So
worship album.
So by the time we got to 2022, a couple of years into it, Virtual Sunday School had been going, we'd go strength to strength. It kept going, and it was brilliant and great. And things were now starting to open up to a bit. And very much, we've entered a whole new season of VSS where it was, people don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
It was very much we're meeting a need, and week by week, people need stuff. But now this is something which is building people up, and it's great and it's good.
Yeah.
But it's not the lifeline that it was.
Yeah. Church is open again.
And things are opening up again. And 4Front was starting to get going again. And it meant that two things for VSS. One, it meant that we didn't do as many videos, and we kind of switched it up, and the channel wasn't as busy.
Yeah.
But it meant that we started doing stuff in person. So we did some family services.
Yeah, they were great.
Which were great fun. They were really good. So we'd go to, and we'd lead the church service, and of course, VSS would lead it.
By this point, we'd had Ariette.
And we had Etty,
So we had our daughter, and she came along for the ride with us.
Yep. And then we were invited to do Spring Harvest.
Yeah.
So we'd done Spring Harvest in the past as part of the Big Start, as like the theatre company. And their first year back in person at Skegness, their 8 to 11s leaders who had been doing it for years, their circumstances have changed. And last minute, Spring Harvest were like, oh, crumbs, we need someone to fill in. And they'd known us and worked with us before. And I think Beth had suggested
us, I think,
off the back of VSS, they're like, well, why don't you ask Rob and Nat? So with
short notice,
significantly less notice than you should have, we accepted, and then had to plan a whole week's program for like 400 kids, which is like 3 hours on a morning, 2 hours on an evening every day. For the first time,
actually done that before.
I've never actually done anything like that before.
We were
at
like,
that level,
it's fine,
Oh, sure.
It's fine. And it was amazing.
It was brilliant.
It was amazing.
And with a team of 50 volunteers who we'd never met.
Most of whom we didn't know. We did bring our core team.
So we had like 5 of us that we knew.
And then a couple of volunteers we knew, but like most of the team we didn't know.
I mean, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
We hadn't even run like a kids' holiday club.
No.
By this point, like at church, or anything.
I mean, we did online
we've been involved
stuff
with things, but everything we'd done beforehand was we do the upfront stuff, we do the on-stage stuff. That's what we're good at. That's great. But all the logistics of organising our whole program, I'll be honest, Spring Harvest, you took a bit of a risk.
I think it paid off though.
I think it really paid off. I mean, it's been fantastic.
It still is amazing. Like, we're really pleased to be going back next year again.
Yeah. We've been there for a few years now.
We have a blast with the kids, and I think they have a blast.
Good.
And so many kids come to know Jesus.
I mean, we very much know what we're doing now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But there was quite a bit of blagging it that first year and throwing it together with limited resources, as it was with everyone. It was post-COVID. It was the first thing back for everyone, wasn't it?
And God was with us.
It was fantastic. Just so good.
Got a lot of time for the 8s to 11s at Spring Harvest.
Yeah.
And also, I remember we met so many families there who'd watched Virtual Sunday School.
We had it 3 times now where someone has just recognised us. Just in the street,
so
just randomly.
Crazy.
It's always weird.
Even recently,
like,
which
we are not famous people.
Which I still think recently it's very weird because like Virtual Sunday School isn't as like, we're not putting videos up that much anymore. And we were at a random McDonald's, a random service station, like hours away from our home, and someone was like, "Oh, you're from Virtual Sunday School, Rob and Nat," and we were like, yeah, hi.
We've had families up and down the country who have been like, oh, it's been so great to we feel like you've been part of our family, which has been such a privilege as well.
I love that.
It's been really lovely that what we've been doing has not only been fun and good to watch and engage in or challenge and whatever else, but there's that sense of like community and like family and like that level of appreciation, which has been lovely.
And that is so nice because obviously for many, many months it was me and you in the house. And, you know, YouTube, when you're making things for kids, you're not allowed to have the comments on. So we didn't have any comments on the videos. And so, you know, we get messages and that was great.
You got Facebook and Instagram.
Actually meeting people who had watched Virtual Sunday School like a lot and who really knew about us and who really knew the episodes.
And seeing the kids, it would be... the fun thing was when like a family would come up to you and the kids would be dead chuffed and excited to like say hello. Yeah. And you'd be like, oh my gosh, I remember you, but a 2 years younger version of you from when you first sent in those craft photos.
So crazy.
Like,
and kids that we met at Spring Harvest, whole families, a family from Scotland who came to Spring Harvest because they watched Virtual Sunday School and they wanted their kid to be part of the Virtual Sunday School 8s to 11s. And that's so amazing. Yeah. Like such a privilege to get to be part of their journey. Like it's crazy that some kids will look back on COVID and we'll be a big part of their life at that point. Yeah. And that's such a privilege. Like,
a bit scary. What
privilege.
Did I say?
Yeah. Well, we can go back and watch all the videos.
True. Hopefully it's all go.
But I think the one last thing to say about COVID years would be that 2020, we were on furlough and we were doing Virtual Sunday School and we got a lot of donations from Virtual Sunday School because obviously we put it out for free and that was really, really great. 2021 was when things started to open up a little bit more. So church was open again, but things weren't open for events. So we couldn't go back into schools yet because schools were still in like bubbles and groups and tiers and things like that. And churches weren't doing events. They were hardly open for church. So we were in a really weird position where Virtual Sunday School wasn't needed as much anymore. So there wasn't as much support for
Which is
it.
Fair.
Yeah, there was the donations like kind of stopped coming as much, but also we couldn't bring in money from our shows because we couldn't do those either.
And the times where we could put things on the road, they were getting cancelled left, right and centre. So all of a sudden it's like, here's the tour and we've cancelled, we have to refund everything. But not all our actors' fees or rehearsals fees, we've still got to pay them. So 2021
was actually the harder year for us because furlough had stopped as well.
Ironically, we were like completely backwards to a lot of people's experience where we went into 2020 and actually by the end of the year, the income that we'd received through just donations and support was all right and kept us going quite well.
Because our outgoings had gone down.
And our outgoings had shot right down.
Because we weren't doing shows.
Yeah. So in terms of the actual funds that we had available in 2020, we had more to play with.
Yeah, we did.
And more sitting in the bank than we did in 2019.
Yeah.
Which was just mad and like backwards from everyone else's experience in 2020. But then in 2021, when everyone else could start going back to work, start getting the income,
going back to
that
normal.
is when everything just went completely downhill for us.
It did.
But the mad thing about all of that and the kind of which puts it in, I don't even feel bad that we got so much money in 2020 because it was such a providence of God.
Yeah.
Because what was the deficit in 2021? What was it?
It was 23 grand.
So we were 23 grand in the red from all of the activity of 2021 and everything that 4Front and Virtual Sunday School had done.
Yeah.
But because of the donations and the lack of having to spend whatever in 2020, we were 23 grand up.
Yeah. The exact amount that we were up in 2020, we were down in 2021. So it was like, Joseph.
Literally Joseph.
Yeah. Like
thin cows and fat cows.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Like we had a fat cow year in 2020.
Yeah.
And then, 2021, the Lord
really
knew because 2021 was the big deficit year. Yeah. And thankfully, by 2022, things were starting to get back to normal again, actually. And we felt like we were starting at a good level then.
And that's when we moved to Lenchwood as well.
Yeah.
Things were just about starting to get to a level of sitting on that level. It was really high, really low, starting to plateau and be a bit sustainable. But all the costs were going up, things were getting more tight, and we still couldn't quite rehearse in places.
And we were back to base level. We didn't have any money to play with.
Struggling.
Yeah.
And that's when Lenchwood came in.
Yeah.
And we moved to Lenchwood, and all of a sudden we moved from struggling to pay our rent, struggling to find hosts, struggling to find rehearsal venues, to paying dirt cheap rent to live in a big old farmhouse, having a free rehearsal venue, and really like dirt cheap accommodation
basically
for all our actors.
Nearly free accommodation.
Free,
yeah.
Which again, for 2022, as we were building back up, we spent 2 and a bit years at Lenchwood.
Yeah.
Which again really kind of nursed 4Front
back
to full health.
Honestly, God has just, at every step where we've needed him, he's just stepped in and made it okay, and made it go forward and made it continue and provided a way for it to not die. Yeah.
It's like we simultaneously have like felt the pressure of always being, oh my gosh, are we just about okay? But also have never needed.
You just get used to it. And at the beginning, weirdly, it is like, oh, stress. And then you're like, yeah, but God's never let us down.
Yeah.
And why would he start now? Like, he's the same yesterday, today, and forever.
But,
and like, yeah, he's just, God is so good. And yeah, and the way we were building up in 2019, it feels like it's getting back up to those levels now and even beyond that. And that's amazing. And the other thing was that it gave us space to have children.
Yeah, totally.
And that was a real blessing as well.
We have 2 wonderful children.
Yeah, now we've got Ariete and Ruben. So.
And like weirdly, 2019 was like the bumper year of 4Front. Wow, we're going to start growing and going places, and we'll take on staff, and we'll get a building, and who knows, and all that kind of stuff. And we were just at the cusp of going somewhere and didn't quite get there. And it just feels like God was protecting us from being too big because of everything that was coming.
Yeah. Do you remember that weeks before lockdown, we'd been looking at buying a second van?
Oh, yeah.
We were so close to spending 10 grand on a van.
Every year we have to rent a second van. We're spending loads of money.
Yeah.
And we're having a good year this year. Projections are looking good. It's going to be a good financial investment to buy a second van. And we got as far as looking round vans.
We went to several van places
and we were
to
like,
look around.
Yeah, and there was a few that were these are definitely goers. And I just was like,
it was you. You put a stop to it every time.
I just put a stop to it every time. I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I can't tell you why, but it's just not right for us to get a second van right now.
Yeah. And how right you were. Yeah. Because it was 10 grand that we needed to refund to all those Scotland and England shows, Fisherman's Tale, that we didn't do. Mad. And we wouldn't have had that to refund had we bought a van.
Yeah. And, all of us, it meant that everything's shutting down overnight for 4Front. Well, the overheads that we have to worry about is still the manageable overheads
it didn't devastate
at me
us.
and that level.
Yeah, it didn't devastate
us. And we were small enough to weather it pretty well.
Yeah.
And not only weather it really well, but actually flourish in the form of virtual Sunday school, a whole new children's ministry.
And what's crazy about that is that now 4Front's been going for 10 years. Actually, 4.5 of those include virtual Sunday school.
Yeah, it's mad.
Which is weird because I feel like I thought of virtual Sunday school as a little thing that we'll do during COVID. Yeah. It's not our main thing, but it's become a big main thing of 4Front. And that's awesome. That's really great.
4Front now, yeah. So, all the musings of COVID and kids work and VSS. I
feel like this was a bit of an emotional episode, wasn't it?
Yeah. Big highs, big lows.
Yeah. Standard.
Yeah. And it's been great. It's been really good. We've said it a few times, but like the genuine privilege of the whole thing, the whole idea that God of the universe, creator and savior of the human race, is intimately interested in the personal lives of people as simple and as stupid and as mistaken and imperfect as me and you, and just the privilege of being able to do stuff to glorify him and build up his kingdom. And VSS has been an amazing chapter of that, and we've had to lean on God throughout the whole thing, but there's been so much fruit off it and so much mad things. It's been a wild ride of Virtual Sunday School that continues still.
Yeah.
Even though we're now back up to 4Front doing its thing and being on the road and putting faith
at the forefront.
At the forefront.
So join us next time for our final episode in our 10-year celebration special edition podcast thing.
Join us on the last episode where we're talking about some of the things we've learnt.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe some of the mistakes that we made along the way, the shows that never were, and some funny tour stories as well. Some of the best ones.
Yeah, and some of the big miracles that we've experienced during this time.
Okay, bye.
Bye.